Hi everyone, I'm Maimah Karmo and I'm your host for Breathe TV. Today we're talking about advocacy, how to be your best advocate for yourself and your community. 15 years ago, I had no idea what advocacy meant, but I've grown because the community of breast cancer is so amazing. And so today you're gonna meet two women who are people I adore. Morgan DePaolo, a mother of 3 now since I met her, and Izzy Jacques, who is also an advocate and a beautiful light in the world. Morgan and Izzy, welcome to the show. So I'm gonna start with Morgan, who I met through one of our Tigerlily programs. Can you share with our viewers what that was like getting diagnosed, how you found the lump, and what your breast cancer story was like?
It was May 2015. I had just graduated and my breasts, I'm sorry.
Boobs are fine. We have boobs.
I had noticed that they had gotten really big, and I just thought maybe it was like a hormonal thing. You know, I just didn't think anything of it because it was around my menstrual cycle. I didn't know anyone who had breast cancer, and of course at that age I was invincible. I went to the emergency room and I had felt the lump, and there was some nipple discharge, and they were just really calm, and I learned a lot about the medical system. And when I went to go see the plastic surgeon, she was just kind of like, well, we have to remove both of them because I can't build a breast as big as the breast that you have. So for symmetry purposes and for cosmetic purposes, you need to just have them both removed. Which I was okay with that because at 23, I kind of felt like this is kind of crazy that I even have breast cancer anyway. So I wanted to decrease my chances of ever getting them again. And no one ever told me that, after you have a double mastectomy, you can actually get it again. Breastfeeding was a big thing for me, and I didn't get to experience that with my second and third child. It was taxing. It was a lot. It was a lot of surgery. One thing I will say that I had on my side was age. I didn't know a lot about breast cancer. At 23, I had no idea. I mean, I thought that I would just have an infection and just keep moving. I'm like, where's my antibiotics? And I wasn't really educated. I feel like they kind of wanted to do away with me. I had no idea about like a nipple sparing mastectomy. I didn't know about those things until afterwards, until I got into the community and I met some other women. I wish that I would have had other options, mainly not even for, cosmetic purposes, but for my children, for breastfeeding. I wish that I would have had other options.
You know how much I adore you. You're so special to me. And when I met you, you were just this beautiful burst of energy, but also really vulnerable. We just talked about the things that you just didn't know about at 23 years old. And as a young woman and a Black woman, there were things that they didn't tell you about or offer you. For whatever reason it was, I've heard this story time and again. And what I found so amazing about you is your resilience and how you would want to cry and you would try to suck the tears back. And I'm like, it's okay. You didn't expect this to happen. You thought, I'm going to go to the doctor, get some antibiotics, go home, and I'll be fine. And you find out that you have breast cancer and you don't know what to do. You don't have resources for yourself, your child, about your body, your lifestyle, your mental health, anything. You have to work. I really admire how you still, found your voice and you still choose to be Morgan.
And, I was just super determined to get past it and to get to a point in my life where, I'm not going to let anything stop me.
And you have done so well with 2 more kids, and you look fantastic and you're doing great.
Oh, thank you.
There are women out there who are like you who haven't told these stories, and this happens to a lot of women. Izzy, your work is in health disparities. How does hearing her story empower you in terms of your work? Because, you don't realize how bad it is that this woman, she went to the doctor for one thing, she found out she had breast cancer, was not offered all these things, nor had the resources, peer support for her children. She's pregnant, she's breastfeeding, and realizing at some point in time she may not have had to remove her breasts, maybe not at all. So how can those who are experiencing these kind of health disparities work to address and speak up about them?
I think your story is powerful and unfortunately and truly sadly not unique. And I think that this is where health literacy comes to mind for me. So oftentimes people hear the term health literacy and no one wants to be called illiterate, right? You don't want to think like, oh, like I know how to read, I understand certain things. It's truly having the education that you need in order to make the right decision. And it's having all the information that you need. So you, in retrospect, looking back, thinking like, oh, if I get rid of both of my breasts, this relieves me of ever having to deal with breast cancer again, when in reality, no one ever told you that that wasn't the case. And so this is where self-advocacy is truly, truly important. So there are advocates, right? So advocates like myself, advocates like yourself, advocates like Maimah, who have the information, but it's up to you to take that information as a patient and to be a self-advocate. I do realize that not everyone is born as a self-advocate. While some people are born with their voice, others, like myself, I was not. And a lot of that is cultural. And I think cultural competency is truly important in a scenario like this. For me, being quiet and being reserved is a sign of respect in my community. It's a sign of respect within my culture. And so questioning authority or questioning a doctor is like out of the question, right? Or second guessing or trying to force my opinion or trying to say, no, doc, you're not understanding me. This is how I truly feel. That's out of the question. But I think self-advocacy does not need to be forceful. And I hate to use the term forceful because Black women are already seen as aggressive, which we are not. It's truly about finding your voice, and there can be self-advocacy. Self-advocacy can come in the form of curiosity. So if you are a reserved person like myself and you have trouble pushing back on authority because a cultural thing, right? You need to show respect. You need to be a young woman. You need to be respectful. I can't be aggressive because that's how the world sees me. I can't do certain things because of how the world's going to see me. I think it's truly important to use curiosity to your advantage. So speaking up and saying, okay, doc, why do I need to have a double mastectomy? What do you recommend? What have you recommend to your past patients? Asking the why, the why, the why, the why, so the doctor can truly understand what your concerns are. And as you continue to ask the why, you're building rapport with that doctor. So you're building communication, you're building a relationship with that doctor. And hopefully that allows you the avenue to truly display your feelings. And also, if doc isn't listening to you, you are the expert of you. This person has never been you. And so you have the authority to make the decision to go elsewhere. But I think self-advocacy is super important. And while some people have their voice, others do not. And it's okay for self-advocacy to come in the form of curiosity through questioning. Ask why.
Always ask why. That's so important. And curiosity is what got me where I am today. Is just asking, well, why is that broken? Why is this that way? Why can't we do this that way? That doesn't work for me or for that patient or that patient. You know, Izzy, a lot of what you do with your work is really empower people to discuss these stories, to share these stories, to talk about the importance of health equity and how to make sure that people of every color have access in a way that's affordable, accessible geographically in every single way. Can you share how you're advocating as a young woman, even though you have not had breast cancer?
I think advocacy is super important. And even though I have not personally had an experience with breast cancer, that does not mean that breast cancer has not affected my life. I do have loved ones who have actually passed away relatively recently from breast cancer. And so this really is the steam that I use as motivation in order to do this work. I do this work especially for Black women because the statistics are drastic. It's crazy to think that we are 4 times more likely to die from breast cancer than our white counterparts. And so knowing this information and ensuring that people are truly educated about this, using my advocacy to fuel other people's self-advocacy is truly, truly important. And I think it's a way to truly amplify the effects of advocacy.
So Morgan, how are you now advocating for yourself? Because advocacy is different, right? There's different ways to advocate. There's, sharing your story. There's telling a friend at the hospital or grocery store or at your job. There's getting a job in advocacy. There's ways you can advocate. It's all different. How are you using your unique voice in a way that is right for you?
Definitely sharing my story. I feel like it's important for other women to hear my story, especially Black women. I actually shared my story on Facebook when I first was diagnosed with breast cancer. After that, I think a lot of people who I wouldn't even typically talk to about personal things would inbox me, and they would be just like, just telling me different things about, their experiences. And I just, encouraged them and shared my resources with them. I always share my resources. You, Maimah, I always give them your information. It's crazy because I really feel like it was such a big, impactful time in my life, but also a small period of my life, because I just feel like I was just so young, and it was such an odd thing. I remember when I met you, Maimah, and I met you in Mexico, and I was the youngest one there, like by a long shot, like extremely young, and I had the best time of my life. But I think I was just so ready to push past that, as I do with anything else that I deal with. I'm like a warrior, I try to push past it. When my children are ready to talk about it, I'll have that conversation with them, but I try to be as normal as possible.
But you are very normal. You actually, you inspired me, because you were so young, and then we were in Mexico, and I was on the beach reading a book, and you were like, let's go parasailing, let's go dancing, let's go do this. I'm like, I'm tired.
Absolutely. Body image is a big thing. I think that's the biggest reminder, obviously, of breast cancer. I've had a double mastectomy, but I really had to learn to love myself. I really had to build my confidence and make sure it was rock solid. I lost my breasts at 23 years old, a part of my womanhood. So at that point in my life, I was like, get this out of me. The biggest thing that really bothered me was not being able to breastfeed my children or give them breast milk. And I remember after I had my second daughter, there was a breast milk bank. I wanted my baby to have breast milk, and they were like, no, we only give it to mothers who adopted babies. And I was like, that's really not okay. That's not okay. I think that there should be, I've always thought about starting some sort of organization for, women who lost their breasts to breast cancer and who still want to give their child breast milk. They also have, prosthetic breasts that you can feed them from, so that you can get that one-on-one bonding. But that has really been my biggest regret.
So Izzy, hearing Morgan's story, you're a Black woman, you're a young woman, and you have breast cancer in your family. I saw your face having all these emotions as she was talking. How do you feel hearing this as a woman who's, close to Morgan's age when she was diagnosed?
It's very tough to listen to. I've had family members that have gone through breast cancer, but they've lived an entire life. Not an entire life, it was still cut way too short, but they've had time to live a longer life than you were at 23 years old. And so it's a little heart-wrenching to hear that you had to experience this at such a young age, being a mother, and then even after being a survivor and wanting to do things that allow you to feel like a mother, do the things that allow you to feel like a human, do the things that allow you to feel like a woman, and that was sort of robbed from you. So that's tough to hear, that you were robbed of those experiences. And I wish that you could have had them, but I love your perspective in terms of you made the best decision that you could at the time for yourself. You allow yourself grace in order to navigate through that and to live a fulfilling life today. And I think that that's such a beautiful characteristic to have. And I think it's such a beautiful trait to have. And I think while you learned that, I wish you were able to teach that, because many people could benefit from that perspective. There are all sorts of studies out there that talk about having a positive mindset and how it actually can help you to beat cancer, how it can help you to have a productive lifestyle, how it can help you to have a fruitful lifestyle. And so having that mindset is super, super important. And going through that mindset change can be a bit challenging, but it's beautiful to see that through your struggle, you've been able to emerge as a new being with a totally new mindset that will serve you for the rest of your life and for the rest of your children's lives. And it will have that amplification process on your community as well.
But as we talk about advocacy, it's sad that the patient has to be the one that carries the burden. You already have cancer. You already have your day job. If you're single parenting with 1, 2, or 3 children, that's that. You got to become an expert in cancer in like a couple of weeks. And so even though I do push advocacy and it's what I am about and what I espouse to everybody I meet, it's really important to affect systemic change to ensure that our healthcare providers understand how to advocate for us and with us, that our insurance companies, that all of our allies, there's things that are happening in this world with racism in the healthcare system that does impede healthcare for those who are of color. And so health equity is a big topic right now. It's really important, it's at the forefront of our minds. And people are always asking me through every day, what do I do as an ally? In your work, Izzy, is doing D&I, diversity and inclusion. How can allies speak up about these systemic barriers and inequities and be better allies as providers, as payors? What can they do? Just a couple of tips to help those who are watching to know how to support patients during this time as an ally.
I think the answer is within, honestly. And I think the answer is we learned it in childhood, right? As a child, you learn stop, look, and listen. And I think that is truly applicable to organizations today. Stop what you are doing, right? Take a step back. Assess who you are as a person first, because you are a person. People make up an organization. So assess who you are as a person. Do you have biases? Do you have biases internally? We all do. I can answer that for you. Yes, you do. Figure out what are your biases, right? And then how are you amplifying that through the work that you do? Unfortunately, many organizations are built on systemic racism. And so you have to stop, sort of diagnose yourself, then diagnose your organization. So that's the look. Look around, look at all of your policies, look at your hiring practices, right? Another thing that I want to mention here is that organizations, oftentimes the cure for diversity is to hire more diverse people, but that's not the cure for diversity, right? It's inclusion. It's ensuring that you are loving on the people that are there internally. It's ensuring that you are promoting the people that are there internally. It's ensuring that you are educating the people that are there internally. And then you can think about hiring additional people, right? Because your people are happy internally. Just because you're willing to hire me doesn't mean I want to work for you, because I'm going to go ask my Black friends inside how they feel about their treatment. And so that's part of the look, right? So you've stopped, you've evaluated yourself, you're looking within your organization, you're assessing all of your policies, from hiring to promotion to marketing to event management to policy work. And then you're listening as well, because you can't just go in and decide you're going to do things for people. You have to listen to your constituents, right? This has to be a collaborative process. This has to be something that you're doing in conjunction with the community, in conjunction with people of color, right? You can't just decide, oh, I know what's best for people. You want to do this with the people who matter. And I think that that's truly important. So my tips for organizations that want to be better allies: stop, look within, look at your organization, identify your biases, take those unconscious bias trainings, take an interrupting bias training. And notice that I'm saying trainings, plural, because you don't just take one and you're done. This is an iterative process. We want you to get better over time. You can't take one training and be like, oh, all my biases are gone, see you later, I'm a whole new person. No, this takes years and years and years. It's a lifelong journey. History has showed us that it's a lifelong journey, because it is 2021 and we are still here having this conversation. It's a lifelong journey. So it's not just one training a year, it's multiple trainings for a whole lot of years. So you stop, assess yourself, look around, assess your organization, look at the policies within, and then listen to people that you are impacting, listen to people that you are affecting. I can't say this loud enough. Listen to Black women, because we are oftentimes ignored, and that is not okay. And the numbers show that we are ignored, which is why we are dying at a higher rate than our white counterparts, when our lives can be spared and our lives can be saved.
That was a sermon. Yep, we're in church. That was awesome. Yes, thank you, Izzy. But it's so true though, because I'm on calls all the time talking about health disparities and health equity. And it is hard to assess your own biases. Right? People often say, well, I'm doing the right thing, I'm not racist, or our systems are working. Well, they're not working. Black women, to your point, are dying at higher rates. People like Morgan, women like her are getting less access to care, no resources, and so forth. And there's so many barriers to care, and also even the clinical trials, we're not even asked to be enrolled sometimes. And so when I talk to companies, they'll often say that we're doing all the right things, and they start talking, and I always say you have to stop and listen to hear, not to respond. So when you're talking to somebody and they're making notes or thinking of how to rebut your comment because they want to be right, you're not being empathetic to what I'm saying and what my needs are. And you can't be a person that's white that's telling me you've lived a Black experience. You cannot tell me that. You've never been in my skin. There are things, to be honest, that have come up in the past year that have given us a space to be able to talk like this, where you couldn't have these discussions openly for me my whole life, because people would have said, that's not happening, it's not true, what's your problem, why are you angry? And so, a lot of things that were bad happened, and I feel like we all have to honor these things that have happened by raising our voices, by sharing our stories, and amplifying our voices every single day. Morgan, you've been living this journey for almost 7 years, and I'm sure having cancer has changed you in many ways. Hearing about what Izzy just shared about health disparities, how would you talk to another young woman who was your age when she's diagnosed? In retrospect, how would you educate somebody in your shoes?
I think I would tell someone, another young woman, to seek an advocate, seek someone who has been through this. There are so many Facebook groups. Breast cancer is highly supported. It's a highly supported community. Something that I was unaware of, when I had 6 weeks to make decisions. And my biggest issue was that I just wasn't educated enough. I never had a problem with questioning or being bold. I just didn't have enough time, like you said, to read things or to research things. It was like a split second that I had to make a decision. And I would encourage them to be bold and to ask the questions that they think may sound silly or that they think that they should know. Don't feel, silly or stupid because you have a question about a journey that you've never been on before. Why would you know about breast cancer before you're diagnosed? Do not feel stupid. Do not feel uneducated because you don't know something and you have a question. They are the expert and they are supposed to advise you to the best of their knowledge and beyond.
When I was diagnosed, it was like somebody put me on a plane to a foreign country where I couldn't speak the language and there was no map and no translator. And then cancer to me was like this, I imagine like soldiers in my body with little pellet guns shooting everywhere. And I'm in this foreign country, like in the middle of a war, and I have no ammunition. I have no one to translate for me. I have to think quick, move fast, and knowing in my mind that the anxiety I face, like whatever choices I made could save my life or end my life. And so a lot of pressure at a young age. And that's why it's so important to me to be an advocate and to do what I do, which is give people a platform, women who are younger a platform. Because, for our viewers, no one tells you how to navigate cancer. No one tells you when you're gonna get sick. No one tells you how to make the right choices. No one tells you which choice is better than the other. I mean, honestly, you're in this new strange world and land, and it's terrifying in terms of what to pick and what to do. But the beauty in the breast cancer space is that we have so many what we call breasties and warrior sisters, and we hold together with a tight bond. Women are there to support you throughout the entire journey as a breast cancer patient, as a breast cancer spouse, whether you're male or female having breast cancer, and as a caregiver. And also children are left behind as well. A lot of times the parents get breast cancer and the focus is on the mother or the father who has breast cancer, and the children are left to sit there and watch and not even be talked about. And so there are advocacy groups that help children get away to camps to learn how to cope with their grief. And to be honest, my daughter's 18 years old now, and at some point she got on Google, began researching about women and breast cancer, and she saw triple negative, because I say it all the time, and she began seeing the statistics around triple negative breast cancer. And so we're going for a drive one day, and on the way back home, she said, "Mommy, can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Of course, Pumpkin." She says, "You told me you wouldn't get breast cancer again, but I read that the kind of breast cancer you have is the most aggressive kind, and if you get it again, you could die." I looked over at her and her face was just like, "Can you don't BS me, tell me the truth." And so I pulled over and I said, well, I didn't lie to you. I said, I believe in my heart and my gut and my soul. I'm doing all I can to never get breast cancer again. And I believe in my gut that I won't. I do all I can to eat healthy, exercise, do my breast exams, watch my environment. Whatever they tell you to do, I'm doing it clinically and holistically. But she began crying. She goes, but you could get it again, despite all of that, no matter what, right? And I didn't know what to tell her, And I said, how long have you known this information? When did you find this out? She goes, weeks ago. I didn't want to ask you though. I just been so scared. And then we began talking about her memories of me when she was younger and me having to go to the hospital. It was like, for her, she was 3 years old. So it was like bits of memory, like mommy not feeling well, mommy gone for a day or two, mommy in bed, mommy bald, mommy's going to doctor's offices, mommy's friends dying. And I think that as an advocate, one thing that's important to me is the mental health aspect around breast cancer. And for the mother and the children and those who love that woman, because it's not just a disease that you face as a patient or an advocate, your entire family's impacted, and they also have to become advocates for themselves, which is a good thing. But also it's a hard thing as a family, right? You have somebody who you love and then they're affected. But the children are the ones who go unnoticed oftentimes, and my mission is to be able to share people's stories through these conversations through Breathe TV, about health disparities, about women who are younger, about men with breast cancer, about children who don't get to tell their stories because we don't see them. We don't think they're listening, but they're watching everything. And more importantly, they were feeling everything. And so one thing I'm proud of is my daughter is now telling her story about, being a daughter of a breast cancer survivor, but her story, not mine, because she has her own story too. And that's why I think stories are so important. And that's why I love having this platform for both of you, for all of our guests, to be able to come on and have a safe space to breathe. Because, one thing that I stopped doing when I was diagnosed at first, like when you hear those words, Morgan, you stop breathing. And I've had to learn how to breathe over the past 15 years because that fear is in your body and breast cancer is always there. And so advocacy comes in different forms. It comes through the form of Izzy, who works in this space in health disparities. Morgan, who's now teaching her daughters at some point to be able to be their own best advocate. My daughter, who's now 18, who I'm really proud of, Noelle, you're amazing, I love you. For those of you who are watching, think about how to be your own best advocate for yourself, for your daughters, for your husbands, and for the friends and those you love in your life. So Morgan, you talked about learning you had breast cancer at 23 years old. What was your diagnosis and what was your stage?
So it was stage 0. I was diagnosed with ductal carcinoma. It had spread throughout my left breast, so there was no way for them to spare my breast. It had to be completely removed. Once they did the double mastectomy, once I went under surgery, they went ahead and tested the lymph nodes, and they discovered that there was no cancer in the lymph nodes, so I didn't have to have chemotherapy or any other treatment. Basically, it was just a double mastectomy, the reconstruction, and then I could move on with my life. I chose to have the double mastectomy in order to decrease my chances of ever having breast cancer again because I was 23. I wasn't quite sure if it ever could come back. I thought that the double mastectomy would eliminate my chances or decrease my chances of ever getting it again until I learned that it doesn't. Never did a doctor ever tell me that. Actually, another breast cancer survivor who I met throughout my journey, she educated me on it because she had actually had breast cancer 2 times after she had the double mastectomy the first time. So, that was the decision that I had made, but I really wish that I would have educated myself a little bit more.
All you can do is what you know at the time. And I feel like sometimes we have shame about our choices, but like I said, no one tells you you're going to have breast cancer. No one tells you when you're going to have any kind of cancer. So it's a very individual journey. And I always tell people you really have to have grace because you're thrust into this world where you know nothing about. You're put on this plane. Nobody speaks English or your language. And you are not giving any kind of navigator or a translator or a map. And you get off the plane and it's a war zone and you have to, so you did the best you could and that's wonderful.
At that moment in my life, I felt like they really just wanted to get me on the table and off of the table. I kind of felt like they didn't want to let me think too far into it or give me too many options to overcomplicate things. I feel like that could be the only reason. There was no reason why at 23 years old, they wouldn't give me multiple options. Someone who is 23 years old and has to live the rest of their life with a double mastectomy. But, nonetheless, I did make the decision.
Do you know why they would have not given you other options?
I think because I'm Black. Like, I honestly think that. I think because I'm African American. I think that, I think it's just their bedside manners. I think they're used to basically brushing you off and getting you in and out as soon as possible. At the time, I was on Medicaid, and now myself being a Medicaid provider, I know what the Medicaid rates are. I know what it looks like as a Medicaid patient, and it's just not, they don't want to give you the best care possible. Being who I was, I mean, I'm lucky that the outcome was the best outcome that it could be, because I was a little bit more bold and I was a little bit more outspoken, but I wasn't as educated. So a lot of times, I could question something that didn't make sense, but if it sounded like it made sense, how could I wouldn't know the answer. I wouldn't know if it was right or if it was wrong. So I was looking to them for guidance. I had a baby, yes, but I never had any surgery, and I'd never been in the hospital for anything. I've never experienced anything like that in the hospital system where I'm treated unequally. It wasn't something that I even really knew about, because I was never in that type of situation. And until I went through it and I was able to look back, I really kind of realized that I wasn't given a lot of the best options. I was kind of rushed. I felt like it was a very cold situation. No one was really empathetic. They kind of just were like, this is what it is. This is what you need to do. And that's it. And I remember one time I started having pains in my breast. Again, I was scared, of course, because at that point I knew that there's no way for me to ever tell if I have breast cancer again, because I don't have nipples. So I'm not going to have the same kind of symptoms that I had the first time around that saved my life. And I called and I said, I think I need to have a mammogram because I'm having pain in my breast. And they were like, oh no, you're too young to have another mammogram. The radiation, you're just too young. And I was like, I really don't care about the radiation. Like, I need to have a mammogram. And she was like, well, didn't you have a double mastectomy? And I was like, yeah, I had a double mastectomy, but I think I still need another mammogram. So she's like, well, I'll get you a referral to an ultrasound. So I remember going to this ultrasound technician, and I was just really upset. I was already very nervous because I was like, I'm having pain in my breast. And I don't know why. I mean, it could have just been because of the surgery, the incisions. Sometimes you can have just random pain. You have an object inside of you that is foreign, and it can cause some discomfort. It was a guy tech, and he said, what am I doing here? And I said, I need an ultrasound on my breast. I need to make sure everything is okay. And he was like, then you have a double mastectomy? And I was like, yeah. I said, but you can get cancer again, and I need to be sure that there is not anything there. And he was completely like thinking that I was just out of my mind and he was wasting his time. And he took the tool, the ultrasound tool, and he just went real fast over my breast. I was livid. I was absolutely livid. And I ended up reporting him, and nothing came about of it. But that moment in time, I couldn't believe that I was dealing with such ignorance. I couldn't even believe it. Had I not met the woman that I met who had 2 double mastectomies and breast cancer twice after her first double mastectomy, I would have never known. And I would have had these people who I'm supposed to be trusting for guidance, guiding me in the wrong direction. There is no other way for me to tell if I have breast cancer. No other way. I have no breast tissue left. And, there's no symptoms how would I know? By the time I find out, you almost would practically be on your deathbed.
Morgan, this story is so unacceptable that this happened to you and many other women who are experiencing the same things now, being young, being dismissed, whether it's when you go ask your doctor for a mammogram or an ultrasound or even, a second opinion, right? You sharing your story with the listeners and viewers today is, for me, the epitome of advocacy. It's not just talking about the empowerment piece, that's advocacy, is talking about the things that you just didn't know, and the things that you experienced, because experiences help us to grow and know how to do better. And so I just want to take a moment to hold you in a space of love for what you've been through and how strong you are, because you are. I've never seen you not be strong. You inspire me to be better and do more and never stop doing this work. I just want to tell you how courageous you are to me in my eyes, and I'm sure our viewers think you are as well. You guys send Morgan some love if you're watching this. Tag her, send us some hearts and kisses and hugs. You're extraordinary. Advocacy is not only about having cancer, right? You don't have to wait till you have a diagnosis to be an advocate. Izzy, what is one thing you would share with someone you love about how to be an advocate?
One thing that I would share with someone that I love in terms of how to be an advocate is that advocacy comes in many different forms. While there's being a vocal advocate, you can go on Breathe TV and you can have an open conversation, or you can go into organizations and you can talk about advocacy. But advocacy comes in so many different forms. Perhaps you're not a speaker, you don't have the gift of the gab. You can be a writer. You can do advocacy work through writing. You can support advocacy organizations. You can partner with advocacy organizations. You can sign petitions. You can do pledge work like the Inclusion Pledge at Tigerlily. You can sign that. You can do behind the scenes work. And so advocacy, while it is a public declaration, it does not tell you in what form your public declaration needs to come. I think that you need to truly be yourself. I think you need to know your communication style, and you need to understand that you really do have power within. And advocacy work, especially self-advocacy work, is truly like the most pure form of self-love. And so no matter what form you pick to do advocacy work, you can still make a difference. You can still create an impact for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your community. Whether that's you speaking to someone, you writing, you partnering, doing pledge work, however it is that you choose love each time.
I love that. Choose love each time. That's so beautiful. I choose love with you guys. This is beautiful. Thank you. Aw, that makes me happy. Morgan, what is one thing you would share with our viewers about how to be an advocate?
So I would tell them, you can't have faith and worry at the same time. You need to be your best advocate. Make sure you're educating yourself, and just make sure you're not afraid to be your biggest voice. And if you know that that's not one of your strong points, if you're not the kind of person to kind of go against the grain, be honest with yourself about that, because there's someone out there, someone like myself, that will do it for you. There are advocates out there for you who will ask questions and who will direct you. It's okay to ask for help. We've all of us breast cancer survivors and the ones still going through it have all been there. Like Maimah said, we can be breasties. Seek help. Try to find someone that has gone through something similar that you have gone through. It's okay to ask for help.
I just love to pause once in a while just to really be in the space of this. Like, it's just a sacred space for me where we can just have these conversations and talk. And I just thank you both for sharing your stories with us, and Morgan for being so vulnerable about your story and what you didn't know, what you wish you knew, and what you know now. I know that somebody watching will hear your story and think twice, and they will push harder. But I'm glad you're still here, and you're getting married soon, and I'll be dancing at your wedding, which I'm so excited about. And you have 2 more new babies, so I have 3 little nieces to hug up on. And Izzy, you're amazing, and you're doing great work, and I'm so proud of who you are as a woman and using your voice. Thank you. So thank you all for watching this episode of Breathe TV. It's been so edifying to talk to Morgan and hear her story, to be honest about what she didn't know. Someone told me once, there's no good way to have cancer or navigate having an illness. There's no good time either, whether you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or older. And so the important thing is to know where to go for support and resources. When you finally find out, share that with people you care about. It's important to empower your friends to also be their best advocates and speak up about their breast health and their journey as well. Those of you who are allies who want to know how to better to work with us, women of color, to end barriers to care and to achieve health equity in our lifetime. Like Izzy said, you have to stop, look, and listen. And advocacy and allyship it's an ongoing process. I think we all learn every day how to be better advocates, right? And how to be better allies in this world. Life is a journey, and the journey is really about, like you guys both said, it's about love and about learning. And so this space where we have this conversation with Bree TV is a space for you to come to feel like whatever you want to talk about with us is okay. And we're so glad you're here. I love you guys for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please comment, please tag your friends, please like and share. And I will see you next time on Breathe TV. Thank you. Brought to you in partnership with Puma Biotechnology.